ready to re-enter the wonderful world of allegory, burlesque, fable, farce, hyperbole, innuendo, irony, lampoon, metaphor, oxymorons, parables, paradox, puns, and of course the ever popular areas of mock soliloquy, and outright fabrications. I hate those I ignored. I guess simile. Who'd I leave out besides similes and personifications? I'm going to try again to get you up close. It's somewhere that goes off in a different direction between any kind of apparent question that even if I present it to you about whether somebody needs absolutely at any given time new information or whether they need new experience. It is the fact that in a non-mystical way, in a non-spooky way, life is talking. It is a kind of four-dimensional, what they used to call it, phenomenology of reading people's bumps on their head. They used to believe that you could tell a man's personality. I don't know why that fell out of favor. There's a way in which is what I've been referring to as a kind of sublime, obscene topology, but is a way in which to feel the way that life is arranged just in the way it pops out at the 3D level. That the stuff is here, not secret voices and not secret information, but there's stuff here. I know I keep saying that I'm trying to encourage you to do it on your own, and you got to find out how. It's not something to simply teach you, but I was going to try a slightly different verbal setup with it. A new method. How about the twee method? It would be a kind of adoption of a moving, it's got to be moving approach, wherein you are continually engaging life in this kind of question of twee, that is, whatever you're looking at, whatever you seem to be considering, studying, pondering, you got this question: to what end? To what end? Now this is far removed from any sort of question that life wires men up to naturally ask, like, why is this happening? Who ordered this? What kind of idiots got together and let this occur? As always, I'm not dealing with this just on the basis of having to be original, which of course you've got to be. You can't be handling things that have already been picked up before. But that is not the raison d'etre of me coming up with such things as the twee. It is no simple, sequential question as to why, as to how. It's none of the, what were they, the 5 big H's when you were taking high school journalism. Who, when, how, and all that. To what end is different, because man is not wired up to ask this. Once you find what, and some of you already can see some of what I'm talking about, but once you do realize what I'm talking about, to look around, and it's to what end. But it is not predicated at all on any binary judgmental values of anybody. That is, to what end, that's got nothing to do with to what end is this terrible thing happening. No. I said what I meant as always. I didn't say any more and I didn't say any less. To what end? Not to what bad end, not to what good end, not to what questionable end. It's got to be to what end? Is life producing this thing or this process? Because again, well, you might think that you're looking at a thing, at a structure, at an entity that is not simply a process. And of course, when you get better and you find out that the so-called world of particle physics does not simply exist way down to where you can't see it. It's just way piercing on this level, and people can't see it. So you can't ask, where is it, why is it, what's it doing? It's got to be going off another angle as to what possible end. An example. Let me make clear what I left there for a second. I started to say that the better you get, things that can appear to be a thing, that is, it can appear to be a person. Why does life let a person like him or her exist? Some historical figure, somebody you know, somebody you've done business with, or maybe just a generic group. Like, why in the world would life let aluminum siding salesman exist? You know, that's insurance salesman. I've forgotten them. Don't write me. Don't write me. You people out, I'm not going to tell you what's going on here. But there are things that can apparently be a noun. And I was simply going to tell you again, I've never told you this directly, but in a sense, everything that you can see as being a noun, from a person to an institution to apparently some codified system of thought or philosophy that can appear to be something that you say, well, that's a school of retro positivism philosophy. But it is actually a process. All nouns can be seen as verbs. That's why you're supposed to stay in transit. Because if you don't stay in transit and you stand there on the corner and you stand at the bus stop, you do look around and you think, well, hey, a bus is a thing. It's a noun. And the people on it are nouns. And you even look up and it says the bus is going to 42nd Street. And you think 42nd Street is a noun. You think going there is a noun. If you're in transit, then you understand that everything that appears to be a noun is actually a verb. A noun is just a verb that's feeling bad. Well, or if you're good, what you realize is anytime you see a noun, what it means is my perception is feeling bad. Some people get up, I understand, with after serious bouts of ingesting certain beverages, and after long years, I hear that they see green elephants and pink hippos. But a real revolution can suddenly get up one morning without the benefit of a hangover and just realize, well, I'm slow today, at least thus far, because I'm seeing nouns. And you realize they're pink elephants. Your consciousness is not at all well. Your perception is flawed right there. All right, I was going to give you an example. You see where I left that life, when I was saying that this question of to what end, and I said it applies to things that life seems to be producing and processes. And I just wanted to throw in the at least temporary coda to that paragraph that when you get good, even that which life seems to have produced as a thing can actually be seen as a process. And I went through all that for a reason, or I wouldn't have done it, right? Okay. The example I was going to use, because here's one that can appear to be, it was not the reason I suddenly thought of it, but it could appear to be a noun, and then you should be able to see fairly easily with this example, it could also be seen as a verb, as a process. I repeat, that wasn't the point, but here's an example. To what end? Here's a good one that's always popping up in life, and even amongst you people every now and then it'll pop up. That great, not American, not Romanian, that great human institution, the lie, L-I-E. Books are full of it, people have fought over it, individuals still believe it is a serious matter. But let me try for a second, apply the great twee. Why has life produced the concept of a lie? And it seemed to be fairly clear-cut until I got hold of you, or what I'm fixing to do, if you participate. A lie seems cut and dried. It'd be ridiculous if I was going to be ridiculous, any more so than this, to go out to the public and say, let me tell you what, great delusion is that there's such a thing as a lie. Boy, what a trick. There's some kind of conspiracy going on somewhere, and part of its manifestation is to make you believe that there's such a thing as a lie. In city consciousness, that is, ordinary people, your city consciousness goes, you're nuts. Even if we're not discussing morality, there is such a thing as a lie. It's easy to describe. Think about it a second. The twee method. What is a lie? Now, the twee method. I'll go back to what you think is the definition in a second. But why do we have this concept? To what end? Still assuming, even you people out here on tape in strange places, will assume that you're past, that you are in some way connected with this, and you're past the erstwhile middle-of-the-road genetic line that finds some moral basis, that there's some moral certitude, there's some religious purpose of the lie, that all religions denounce lies. I know that. Not even being particularly religiously educated. I know that. I know that even people who are not religious, I know that the great humanist philosophies, I know that all right-thinking people throughout history denounce lies. I guess you picked up a book of world-famous quotations and you looked in the index, surely lies would be somewhere close to love. And the amount of said that's been said, the quips, the proverbs, the maxims denouncing lies. But now think about it a second. To what end? To what end? Still assuming that you're past, that you're freed from, that you're already off on a minor genetic tributary to end up here with me. No notion of any kind of moral teaching. It's not simply because the God said, hey, there's a bunch of stuff we don't like. You know, insurance salesmen, early Monday morning interviews, and lies. And we don't have to explain to you people, which of course they don't. We don't like them. And so there we are. Assuming you're past that, and that I do keep hinting and telling you the absolute fact that that which exists has a purpose, that which a man can measure, that which humanity can perceive and be conscious of, is serving. If it has any long lifespan at all, continuing lifespan, it is serving some growth producing, some growth supporting purpose. That is, of course, the general response to what end, whatever's going on, to what end is to keep life growing. But now back to the specifics. So forgetting any sort of fairly childish, not in a pejorative sense, but in a non-communicative sense, what this thing that's called a lie, to what possible end has life made this such a big deal to humanity? To what end? All right, I said I'd go back to the definition rather than give you anything even approaching an answer as to what possible end, at least yet. How about the definition itself? As I said, it would appear to be clear-cut. I didn't look up in the dictionary, but a lie is something that somebody says is not true. I guess that's close enough. But now, when it gets down to the 4D reality of it, the phenomenology on life's head, consider this. A lie has to be a reflection of human consciousness. That is, it's got to be written or said, right? I guess we can go that far without even checking your dictionary more. The lie is not a non-verbal. It is not a kind of red circuit facade. It is not a blue circuit sham. A lie is something that is said, a statement, said or written. Now, how about this? The dictionaries do not take this into consideration, seeing as how they were all invented in the 3D world. A lie, that is the statement, the untrue statement, is not a lie until it's realized to be a lie. Until it's uncovered. Whether it takes a second or 10 years. Now, is that clear enough? Now, it's not spooky. Everybody, you just... Out in the city, there's no need to look at it that way. But a lie, a statement. Of course, we're assuming, at least Soto voice to set this up, it's an untrue statement. All right, this statement, for it to be uncovered, to be discovered, to be identified properly as a lie, must perforce be discovered, uncovered, and identified, right? If you don't know it's untrue, you don't know it's untrue. Even Aristotle would have understood that. If you don't know that it's untrue, you don't know it's a lie. All right? Now, my question, back to what possible ends, trying to give you some kind of push. This statement, this untrue statement, this statement, before it is uncovered as being a lie, what the hell is it? No, what is it? Don't sit there and dance with your own nervous system back at that level and say, well, that's an undiscovered lie. That won't do. You're not going to get anywhere with that. To what possible end does life ultimately, in certain cases, have something identified? Let's say by common consent, some section of the city, some group of people, without any doubt, it's an accepted fact that that was a lie. That's a lie, and there's now no doubt about it, and everybody says, yes, it's a lie, it's a damn lie. All right, whatever it was, this statement lasted a minute, 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. Up until that point, what was that? Why does life arrange itself in such a way in human affairs? To what end can something be ultimately discovered to be a lie? What was it up until then? And you cannot just stay at that kind of crude yellow circuit level, as I was trying to indicate, and say, well, it was just an undiscovered lie. No. That's no definition of anything. That's hardly even a 3D definition, you know, which wouldn't even impress the dog that crossed himself. That's just a small little pile. That's not even 3D. That's not even worthy of the 3D world. To say, well, it's an undiscovered lie. All right, it wasn't even, the statement was made. Blah, 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 blah. Just to make it talkable for a second, let's say that it lasts for 6 months. That somebody gets up that gets some notice. It could just be in your personal life that somebody told you. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend says, nah, I never did sleep with him. I never did sleep with her. Of course, let's say 6 months later, if it was a man, and there's a little nipper, and he's got red hair, and you go check in the mirror, that sort of thing. Let us say that some period of time goes by and something was said, and it could be personal, but it could be on some great level, that in the city somebody stood up that had some credentials, the ability to attract attention, and said, so-and-so is true. And I'm here to tell you, and I'm the man who would know such things, and I tell you this is true. And everybody who hears it has no reason to denounce it at the time. They go, wow, it is something. It's a statement. And let's say it lingers around for 6 months, and then somebody says, we got the goods on him. That was a bald-faced, demonstratively provable lie, and here's the proof. Everybody just sees immediately, and it is. Then within a matter of minutes, this same group of people, well, let's say they broadcast it now with the mediums we have, to almost the whole city, and within a few minutes, everybody in the city knows it was a lie. All right, now it's something else. But it was not simply an unproven or an undiscovered lie before that. It was not simply an unproven assertion. Somebody made a statement, and people took it. The idea of a lie didn't arise. It was, to what end is life arranged in this way? And why is it that human consciousness, since I have gone this far, those of you who can listen real fast, why is it that the first thing when I said don't listen to your ordinary nervous system, the first thing when I said, what was the untrue statement before it was discovered to truly be a lie, what was it? And I said, don't simply say it was an undiscovered lie. That was a kind of cheap trick if you got a cheap nervous system, because your nervous system goes, what else could you call it? That's what it was. Why wouldn't I call it that? What's the trick? What else could I call it? That's what it is. Why would I call it something else? What you want me to call it? A Hudson? You would call it a broken chair? It was an undiscovered lie. That's what it was. Why shouldn't I call it that? Why is it human consciousness, if you say, all right, such and such is yet to be properly labeled as blank, in this case a lie. So before that, it was known to exist, it was seen, people were conscious of it, and they called it something else. What do you think they'd call it? Okay, so it wasn't discovered to be a Hudson car yet. No? All right. Then it was a non-Hudson. It was an anti-Hudson. It was anything but a Hudson. Of all the possible small sets in the world of automobiles, Hudson being one, then before that, assuming that you were really pseudo-intellectual, I guess you would say it was every other possible automobile set or measurement in the world except. Is that all human consciousness is capable of? If it is, shall I put a punchline on that? If it is, boy, have you people been taken for a ride. Except how? That makes another interesting. It's how have I fooled some of you all this time when you thought, wait a minute, sometimes I almost hear this. How can that be if it's absolute foolishness? We'll go into that some other time. When's the next leap year? See if you can find the connection between this. I guess it's about time to go in this. After all this time, I pointed out that there is no out there. And even gone back and done some of your own nervous system talking for you, for me to play burlesque, parody, irony, personification. Do I have to go through the whole thing again? Puns, paradox, parodies. As your own nervous system says, human consciousness. And everybody says, well, that's not true. There is an out there. For me to say my equation of I plus not I equals everything, that is really, the more you begin to see it, is not spurious, it's specious. It's one of the few things that I would say that I almost got as dirty as life to ever come up with that. Because the more you see of it, it's like it's true to start with. It's just obviously true. And then it begins to be subtly true. And then it gets to be kind of super metaphor. And then it gets to be untrue. Well, it's not true, but by then you understand that the basis of it was obviously true, but God, what a trick, because there is no not I. Consciousness says that's not true. Everything about you says it's not true. People can come up and touch you. They can touch you physically, and that's not you. You don't be touched. People can hit you, or they can just come up and punch you and say, hey, are you listening to me? You need insurance. And you think, don't punch on me, you insurance salesman. But for me to pick out examples, and then, of course, it could be worse. Some of you, I'm afraid somebody here is going to become a rabbi or a pope. And then I got to change all my examples. Everything, not just some kind of diluted sense of consciousness, but everything about life. Everything about life in the city, everything about being human tells you that this has got to be one of the world's strange metaphors, or else I am nuts to say there is no out there, because there is. People can come up and interfere. As the heavy psychologists in Southern California say, they can absolutely invade your space. The world, that is, the not you, is certainly not limited to being touched. It's not limited down to the physical level. The not you, the out there, affects you other ways. Somebody say, hey, you sure are putting on weight? Hey, keep those clothes, they might come back in style. Somebody has reached over, a not I, because you can say, look, I didn't invite that. I didn't do anything to them. I was minding my own business. I don't believe that I am an unconscious masochist begging, hurling out these subconscious messages about come kick me and insult me. So there isn't out there. All right. I guess it's time to go a little further with it. There is no out there in the sense that this is separate from you. Anybody who still believes that, of course, believes in God. The big G, the big Allah, the big poobah, the big thing outside the system. And of course, if you believe that, you're done for. That is, there being forces outside the forces. The out there is no out there separate from you. There is no out there any more than there is an environment. And of course, consciousness says that's not true, because there are things that happen in people's life after they're born. Everybody. You got to be an idiot to say that's not true. There are things that happen out there that affect you greatly. But you're constantly being affected. So there is an out there. There is the environment. All right. From a certain view, I'll repeat one more time for the benefit of you who need me to repeat it one more time. There is no out there. There is no environment. There is no such thing as a fish separate from water. There is no such thing as you separate from everything that apparently is not you. It's just, there's not. It's just as silly as talking about a fish without water. But from a certain view, there is an out there in this sense, that there is a medium of transmission that has never been identified. It has been misidentified by such names as the environment, as other people, as forces outside my control, among other things. Bad luck, the gods, the anti-gods, the weather. There is, in a sense, an out there. In the same sense that a fish, if it could do it, if it get outside it, if it had a three-dimensional vision instead of what it has, or a four-dimensional sense of where it was, then it could say, all right, there is an out there, but I'm inseparable from it. If I actually divided myself from out there, there wouldn't be any me to divide from out there. There wouldn't be any me to talk about it. But there is a way in which it's about time that some of you consider some of this, that it is an alive medium of transmission of energy, information/energy. Of course, I guess some of you recall back in the 18th century when they had that idea of the ether to explain. And strange to say, it fell into disuse, if not complete disrepute. But there is, in a sense, an out there. But it is an alive means and medium of transferring and transmitting energy. Now, since I pointed out to you quite clearly, and I'm sure everybody sees it by now, that there is no environment, that there is no out there. So keeping that in mind, let me present to you a great question. If you hear it as a good question, if not great, it's good. Oh, no, it's great. How do you explain this? It's never been asked before. Consciousness, I got no business dealing with it. Even I can make it sound reasonable. Ordinary people would hear it and they go. This has happened throughout history. It's happening right now. Our country, this place physically where we live on this planet, this part of life's body, is a great example of it. Here's the question. How do you explain the fact, since there is no out there, there is no environment, how do you explain the fact that you take a group of diverse people, all the immigrants that came to this country, and I could put you out other examples, but this would suffice. You've got these large numbers of people with no blood connection, generally speaking. That is, you got whole groups of the Irish, Anglo-Saxons, the Germans, Italians, Russians. Everybody came over here. And almost immediately, these people with no immediate, no close, no blood, no close genetic connection, no relationship, just almost immediately felt a combined collective sense of nationalism. People that couldn't even speak the same language. Now, I said ordinary consciousness wouldn't deal with this. I guess I could present it, and somebody such as maybe an anthropologist or psychologist could say, wait a minute, that's got some connection with the territorial space that animals feel. And I could go somewhere with that. It doesn't go far enough. But you must see that that does not explain. It doesn't even begin to give any indication how you can take really diverse, different apparent so-called nationalities, races, and put them in a place. And that's not just America. I don't want anybody to think I was just using that as some kind of singular example. It's happened throughout history. And these group of people get thrown together. A bunch of people get thrown out of other countries, and they throw them all on this island to get rid of them as punishment. From all different kinds of cultures, races, and they throw them on an island. Within a day or so, they're all feeling nationalistic about our island. Think about it a second. How does that happen? And it is not, I repeat, it is not simply a manifestation of that kind of, which there is a reality to that, of that kind of lower circuitry down at the red level that we've got in common with some other animals, of that kind of territorial defensive feel that is inbred. That is not what I'm talking about. That is not nationalism. How does this happen? All right, I'll tell you. There is, from one view, an out there. It is an alive medium. And part of the reason, since I've gone this far, and none of you are following the floor yet, that humanity has been wired up to have this impression that there is a distinct out there, and there's no question about it. There's nothing to look into. It explains just about anything you want to explain, such as, how I'm always getting kicked around and misused is because of these out there, these other people. There's a way in which the out there, the apparent environment, life uses, and from certain views, if you can see it, as a shortcut to a longer process of what would seem to be physical genetic change. It is a kind of short circuit. It is a bridging of a gap that it can make such things, well, none of you are coming along, that you can grab 2 or 3 people, 200 or 300, 2 or 3,000 people and put them in a new place, and just in a matter of days, these diverse people are feeling nationalistic together. In a sense, the genetic code that should have taken at least 1 generation of birth leaped through the ether that they don't believe exists anymore. All this dead space. It's almost, you make a mistake to take this literal and forget about it, but it is the basis of how things that everybody else attributes to the environment, which never explains anything to them, or they attribute it when really pushed to an individual level. Most civilized, sophisticated people now would say, well, it's all right, it's some kind of psychological, see, the psychological gambit to help this group of people survive, or else it could be a matter of collective hallucinations. Who knows what it is? Well, they can ask that rhetorically. I know what it is. Out here, it's not dead. What appears to be this empty space between you and me, you just can't see. You're dealing with that old faulty vision I keep talking about. It is alive, and life itself, there's a kind of synapse between us, between everybody, that life can make what amounts to. Don't take this literal and then stop. But it is a kind of synaptic, almost immediate, non-generational, non-physical genetic change. An alteration can take place within a short period of time that if it was left at the physical level, then all these people, all these different people that came on this island, couldn't speak the same language. Just understand, this polyglot group of people that put on this island, and within a matter of days, they can't even speak the same language, but they understand. They're beginning to feel nationalistic. These people that the first time they hit the beach, they realize these other people, some of the Germans realize there's some French, and the French realize it's the Germans, and they're about to kill each other, and they survive the first day or so. Then you look out, and it's like another boat coming up, or some more people, and suddenly, within a matter of days, the French, the Germans, the Russians, they're all standing shoulder to shoulder, and even if they can't speak the language, they're looking like, hey, who are these fuckers coming up? We'll kill them. Of course, I'm just using ordinary terms. That is what is referred to as nationalistic feelings, and the reality of it happens. How did that happen in several days? And it is not the territorial imperative down at the level of us that we've got with chimpanzees. Although there is reality to that. It is not that. You know what's happened? That this is alive. The space between the German and the French, and the Russians and the French. It is alive, and life, in a sense, can make what should have taken a whole generation. Did you notice why I backed up with this? For this kind of thing to take place from a city view, then it should have taken at least not only 20 years for, well, let's say 20 years. They're still using that as a generation. For these people to take up, properly fuck, have new kids come up to where they grew up on the island, and the kind of apparent, belligerent feelings between these diverse peoples, that now they're on the island. After 20 years, they realize we all, as they would say, I guess, we all got to stand together, or we're all going to fall together. We got to, protect this island and look after each other, or we're all done for. And then they have this whole new generation. They grow up, all they know is the island, and so they begin to feel nationalistic, right? 20 years. There's a way in which life can do stuff like that in 20 hours, and nobody can explain it. And it comes out being misdirected. It comes out misdefinitions, because what I keep telling you, there is no out there. There is. But it's not the out there that's separate. It is not the out there that's some sort of binary split between you, that I go out to the end of my skin. I go out to my space, baby. And after that, don't fuck with me. That's everybody. Even people that seem to smile. The Pope, everybody says, hey, don't fuck with me. There's you and there's me. If you want to treat me decent, if you're going to be a good Catholic, you're going to be a good whatever, you can move a little closer. But I'm me, and you're you. If any of you thought that was too strange, before we stop here for a second and turn the tape over, I can give you another example. I can give you an example. If you hear it, some of you should, I don't want to leave the room and ask for something to take out. If you don't like this nationalistic example, I'll offer you another one that would hit the list when you look in the index under famous quotes. how do you explain, since nobody else can, do you see any connection with me to say that another great example of this is so-called, in the city, romantic love? Yeah. Should I have a hot one? In case love didn't do it, I got another one just struck me. I know many people of your ilk at one time had interest in such matters. I can't resist. Listen real quick, because I'm not going to stay here. It's not. Now, I warn you people out of town, I pick out these examples not because I'm even inferring that there's anything important in the description, in the terms used. So don't get yourself captured by this. But back to the great, always popular, conspiracy theories. Besides the Trilateral Commission and the international banking conspiracy to put all you middle-class and lower-class people in debt, which that's another joke completely. But in the last, easily this century, and there were little traces of it. I'm not trying to give a history lesson, but there are traces of it long before this, but some of them are kind of obscure. At least all of you who are fairly well read will recognize what I'm about to say. At least in this century, there has been, from many sources, educated sources, public sources, a description, then a condemnation of what they call, at least in English, the one-worlders. That is, that there are these groups, these individuals. Life suddenly makes these voices say, do you realize that there are people around, groups of people meeting? And what they have in mind is that what they want to do is break down eventually all of our nationalistic borders, the economic differences between all of us, and what they want to do is just have a one world government. And of course they say it and they look like they're about to gag, you know, oh, one world government. And large numbers of people, when they hear that, tremble, reach behind them there in the truck and reach on the gun rack. God damn those one-worlders. We'll kill them. You know, the Alabama National Guard will take them on. We'll wipe them out. For those of you who have forgotten, I'm still not dealing with politics. I'm just using common examples. The old ideas of the conservative and liberal split. For those of you, I hadn't done it in many years, I don't guess, but the nervous system itself, all you're doing, at least through those of you who remember some of my earlier drawings, is all you got to do is talk about the lower areas, the lower circuits. And it's not qualitative, it's not an attack, it's not a political statement, but I'm just showing this is the way it comes out. In life, there have been all kinds of attempts. They know that they're seeing something. Politicians, writers, sociologists throughout history have been trying to describe the right wing, the right aisle of Parliament, and the left aisle, the liberals and the conservatives. And they try their best. If you look up in the dictionary, and you can see that's one of these sketchier definitions. It is. They're hard put. It's like the old justice that claimed, the Supreme Court justice, that he couldn't actually define pornography, but he knew it when he saw it. Right, the world is full of people that say, all right, now that you ask me, I can't really describe what a liberal is. But I know one when I see it, I know one when I hear it, and they're right. But that's just a little small tributary you might find in. It's a small branch. They can't describe it, but there it is. It's not right or wrong. It's not up or down. In a sense, three-dimensionally, this is a past time. Except the past time still exists, you got to remember. That the time zones, there's a need for this. Some of my jokes about the Alabama or New Jersey people in their pickup trucks. It's in you. You got a conservative, you got a redneck down in your nervous system. The liberal would be that which is more inclined to be going by the yellow circuit's ideas of how things might be, how it could be. It's life talking to itself into another time zone. All right, where I really was, I was hoping some of you might get a glimpse of something that is really... If somebody comes out, life, doing its thing again, has somebody stand up somewhere, write a book, make a great speech, and they say, do you people realize all these notions throughout history of some kind of conspiracy, of some kind of secret organizations or religious organizations? Nah, it's out in the open now. And they'll name names. They'll point out past Secretary Generals of the UN. They'll point out heads of some of the banking families of Europe. They'll point out past presidents of the United States. They'll pull in all kinds of people and they'll say, you know what they're after? You know what they're after? Is these people have no allegiance. I don't care whether they're French, British, American, Brazilian. They've got no allegiance. It's the people controlling the money, the purses, the inside power of the world. And you know what they want? They want to do away with all countries. They want us all not to any longer be Americans and French and Italian. They want us to be in one world, no trade barriers, no nothing, because then they'll have even more power and more money. And when they say that, the group that responds to it is down in the lower circuits. The people in Alabama, the people in the rural areas of Italy, people almost illiterate. Think about it a second. They're the ones that respond and say, to hell with this. I never heard about it, but I hear what you're saying and I don't like it. Who can I attack? All right, now looked at from a three-dimensional, just a fairly rational view, what the hell difference could it possibly make to semi-literate grape growers in Italy, bricklayers in Alabama, absolutely illiterate people starving to death in Brazil? What difference would it make? But now, remember where I started in that, to what possible end? I ask you now, not just back to the living reality of the not I, the apparent out there being a living medium of transmission. Now back to the example I started out with. Ask yourself, try and ponder this non-verbally, to what end? Why do we have nationalistic boundaries? And it is not. I know there's reality to this. I could give you a better lesson than any anthropologist or biologist. There is a reality to this territorial imperative in defense. It's just no big secret. There simply is. You don't like. Everybody's got some area that you don't like. People getting too close. Certain kinds of people getting too close. That is not the basis. That is not the final 4D view of why we have nationalistic boundaries. As I said that, did anybody have any flash as to why you have a boundary? No. That's got to be something else. Yeah. There's a part of life, back to what ends. The real revolution is somebody who really is kin to all of this genetically. You do begin to see, not through me theoretically talking, not through some kind of, well, since we don't have any theoreticals here, and certainly not through my books, since we don't have any books, and not through our belief system, since we don't have one here. It's for you to start feeling, and then to begin to see for yourself to what ends, is to see that this is all alive. There is no dead space. This is not a damn radio station. The transmission goes off the air sometimes. This is not the dynamic world of television wherein, in a particular city, you can go from one channel to another, and there'll be 4 or 5 channels with nothing going on, as you would call it. Dead air, dead space. There is no such thing, unless you're dead. That's the only way that you could ever, and I'm playing with the reality now, but that's the only way that a human would ever perceive anything lifeless, is when you are. It is all alive, it is all talking, and it all is transmitting energy, which of course is getting close to the secret that I can't ever tell you. That is the secret everybody else has always hollered about why are we here, what's the meaning of life? And I keep telling you I'm not going to tell you, or I can't, and I almost do. Now if I don't, if you can begin to use the Twee method, then you don't have to just depend on me. In case I stay kind of mad and irritable and don't ever tell you, you don't have to depend on me becoming more mellow and giving it away. It's all alive. Just think about it that way. And that life makes genetic jumps that by all known, scientific, accepted truth, that is, no lies, truth, about how life changes, how mutations, how alterations take place. Well, everybody knows how they take place. Don't you remember the little monk and his peas out in the garden? It takes place through genetic alterations. That your children, if you find out that you're continually frightened by, who's that guy? Pat Sajak. That if you're seriously as frightened by him as I am every time I see his picture, that your children will grow up having a built-in genetic defense to him or anybody who looks like him, so that perhaps they'll never get surprised and attacked by a whole herd of deranged weasels or something. But when you see it's all alive, as you understand what other people think of as being some kind of magic or supernatural, that life is continually, in a sense, what they're describing in the city as these genetic alterations, these mutations, the survival of those who are most compatible with their environment. That it does not take a generation. It does not take the birth physically of a child from you or anybody else. That these kind of mutations take place almost instantaneously, and they're never identified as such. There's no way ordinary consciousness can identify them as such. It has other explanations. All of them unsatisfying, but it has other explanations. It seems to be a continuing unfolding of scientific progress, that we're getting a little closer. Of course, in other areas, they keep denouncing parts of this as the occult, the mystical, and you people are nuts, which of course they are as nuts as the scientists are. That is, neither one of them understand what's going on. It's the inexplicable. And yet to a large segment of life, they go, I see it. It's not inexplicable. You people just can't explain it to me, so therefore we're saying it's the gods, it's the Martians. It's all alive. That's what's inexplicable. That's what 3D consciousness cannot see. Because 3D consciousness, you can get the best pair of glasses in the world, even with designer frames. And as far as you can tell, the styrofoam cup is not alive. As far as you can tell, the distance between you and I is not alive. As far as you can tell, lies are not alive. They just don't exist. I mean, we got a name for it. Error does not exist. You find out that something you believed is not true. You find out something that you thought was acceptable that is denounced. You go, oh. What it's meaning is, oh, well, that no longer exists. Well, where'd it go? You were talking about before, you said you believed in it. Yeah, but that's where I found out was a lie. All right. Just tell me, where did it go? Where did you put it? Were you responsible? Did you take it home and put it in the bottom drawer, like next to your old holy socks? Like, well, I'll never use that again. Did the great truth monster, like on Sesame Street, grab it and eat it up? If so, you got to follow him around and find the droppings. Don't mistake him for God. Where did it go? It's alive. What I was going to say is stretching. How can it be that life puts out? To what end? Does life put out somebody? Not just one guy. I assume all of you know that there is a fairly widespread interest. It comes and it goes like everything else. In the one world theory of government. And it's not just some bunch of crackpots. You'll have people like the Henry Kissingers of the world who will seriously say, well, I'm not here to propose such as that. I'm not here to say it's going to happen tomorrow, but it seems obvious to me and other right-thinking people, and I'm just picking him out as somebody that most of you know, that we have got to, in some way, overcome this ingrained, this unprofitable, jingoistic, chauvinistic nationalism that the human planet can't go on like this. All right, life has people saying that, and there are those who are normally referred to as liberals, but there are a large part of life's body, forget the politics, even the apparent politics, a large number of people go, that's true, that's true, that's true, we're all in this together. This is like some great lifeboat, and we're all here, we've got to survive together. But then there's still the overwhelming number of people who ever hear this wail. To what end? That life is putting out, again, these kind of two different forms of energy, apparently two distinctly antipodal messages, that we should be doing this. We've got to do this. And it says, oh, life goes, yeah, there's no doubt about that. All these petty squabbles between Catholics and Protestants and Jews and Arabs, and this has got to stop. These people are going to blow my liver up down in there if they keep this up. It's almost as though life says that, and this almost is life, takes a sip of coffee or looks around, and the rest of life goes, what? It's a goddamn conspiracy. We're not going to put up with this shit. Bubba, get the gun. We'll kill him. And there it is. The reality of it is going on continually. It is right before your consciousness. Ordinary people, if they see it in any way, if I went through this kind of stuff and kind of eased up on some ordinary group, then the only thing if I said, by the way, when you go home tonight, just think about, why are things like this? And people don't have to think about it. Ordinary consciousness says, well, it's because people are dumb. It's because a large part of humanity that is out there, not me personally, but out there, the rest of them, it is surprising the number of neurotics, psychotics, and just generally deranged. I mean, it just always has been. Look at your human history. Well, I got to go. There's a way in which I can point out to you, beyond my attempts to get you to just consider this twee, but there is a very specific way in which someone attempting to do this has got to begin to see, to recognize, and then seek to alter this. What it amounts to who's supposed to be in charge of this?
I am.
Good going. Derek, take charge of this.
Yes.
If you can't, tell me you can't. There's a way in which you have got to see how to do a specific thing that I can put a term on, is to be able to change the contours of the frontier between you and out there. As it is, I can start off fairly verbally and say, back to my old equation, everything. But the contour is right there. I can describe it another way. There's apparently the in here, my personal inner life, that in the city, whatever they want to call it, my personality, my thoughts, my dreams, the me in here that knows it's me. The frontier is right there. Now, since everybody seems to like cartoons, can you understand this? There's our man. There is a contour, literally. The contours of the frontier is what? It's this. It's where he apparently meets out there. It's where he apparently meets not out everything. And of course, I'm limited by this three-dimensional piece of paper. These lines would go out, as far as three-dimensional sight's concerned, they would go out to infinity. There is the continuing, alive contour. It is the frontier, apparently, between you and all not you. It is real. It is real physically, according to how much space you're taking up, physically. But there is a frontier. There is a contour, the impression that you're making on the ether. The real ether, not the old 18th century bygone ether. The real ether, that is the real living medium of out there. You have a contour. If you never change the contour of this frontier, the fence between you and out there, nothing changes. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And changing it physically, of course, won't get it. If it would, then I would simply, everybody want to do something extraordinary, I'd make you lose 10 pounds and then give me your firstborn and your car and everything else. And you go, wow, it was worth it. You have got to be able to alter the contours of the frontier between you and out there. If you don't, then the medium of out there that is transmitting, that is capable of being a medium of transmission of energy / info, will stay just like it is, and you will never know anything more than you know now. The medium stays the same. Your connection to apparently out there stays. You have got to be able to alter the contours of the frontier between you and out there. If you don't, then the medium of out there that is transmitting, that is capable of being a medium of transmission of energy / info, will stay just like it is, and you will never know anything more than you know now. The medium stays the same. Your connection to apparently out there stays the same. It's as though you had a $9 telephone and you could only hear every other word that people said. That's what you got the rest of your life. Or it's as though your view of life was through a 16th inch little piece of rubber hose, and that's what you look through. You can go to Harvard, you can go to Yale, you can move to Alabama, you can go to Romania, you can stay on your head, you can have a sex change operation, you can have plastic surgery, you can attempt to have them do something about the cerebral cellulite in your brain. And that's all you'll ever see. If the contours stay the same, the medium of the transmission of energy / info has to stay the same. If your contour is what it is now, the medium cannot change. No new information can come in. It simply cannot. It is strangled. It is limited. The contour between you, surely everybody understands that drawing as true as it is. Everything that's out there is a medium. It's transmission medium of energy or / info, being interchangeable. And if your contour, the frontier, the fence, the border, the apparent border between you, not just physically, but the apparent border between you and all the non-yous, if it stays unaltered, the ability for the medium to transmit information is unaltered. And me, somebody else, could stand and scream forever. And you could go, very interesting, very interesting. Could I make some notes? Very interesting. My, my, my. Ha, ha. I never thought of that. My, my, my. Well, I've got to go too. And that's it. I shouldn't have to scream that and holler, that's it. You've had all your life. What a book, what a book, what a book. This book will change my life. God, what time is it? I miss Miami Vice. No offense to Miami Vice. The book didn't change your life. I always wanted to meet a famous person, and I did. What happened? Well, he had bad breath. He owned cheap shoes. It does not change. You have got to be able to alter the contour between you and the apparent not you. As long as I'm here, I don't, as you know, surely don't have any desire whatsoever to encourage any of you deranged, those of you who had deranged city consciousness to begin with, to encourage such as that. But the ability for life to alter the frontiers, the contours between an individual and the apparent non-individual, the apparent out there, is the basis, as long as I'm here, for all these dreams. Is the basis, right at the core of all the beliefs of such things as ESP, mind reading. It's quite simple. There it is. It happens in life. Life has all kinds of little accidents, little anomalies. Transient systemic anomalies occur. And suddenly people go, wow, I knew what was going to happen. Or the phone rang and I knew what was going to be. Some of you, as long as I said that, some of you in here, I'm aware of this. We don't discuss it, and no need to. But there's some of you here and in other cities that you get distinct impressions at times. It's happened to you that you were in a situation you couldn't decide what to do, and it was almost as though, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, and don't you ever repeat this, nor to tell me, but it's almost as though you thought, you almost heard me say, do so-and-so, and you did it. I know that. Now, I'm not saying that in some way I did that. I'm not saying, believe me, I'm not saying that I sit around and picking up transmissions. And I'm not saying that you were hallucinating, because I have already in the last few weeks done something I never had in particular intention to do. before now that there is, amongst people involved with this, non-horizontal, non-city definable, but there is a kind of genetic closeness that defies, that transcends in another direction, not better, not worse, not to replace, but it is different from blood kin. And there's a feeling that some of you have had. And I repeat, I am not telling you it was improper to have the feeling. That you almost thought that I made a decision, or you even thought that I said something, and you did it. And it always seemed to be all right. To ordinary people, assuming such happens, that is spooky. That is proof of supernatural powers. Yeah. It's proof that they don't understand that out here is alive. They wouldn't think it was supernatural powers if I called up and I said, is anything bugging you today, Bucky? And you said, yeah, I can't decide whether to do this or that. And I said, well, if I was you, I'd do so-and-so. And you went, that's good enough for me, and you hung up. Is that spooky? Yeah, but 3D consciousness says, wait a minute, you ain't got no phone in your hand and ain't no wires going from me to you. That just shows the limit of your vision. You said, well, hell, I found out that you were, in Fort Arthur, Texas, Saturday when I was doing that. And so it had to be supernatural because it was almost, I'm not going to say that, well, it was almost as though you were somewhere behind me. I heard you say, yeah, do that. And so that's supernatural. That's proof right there. It's proof that you can't see the damn wire strung. It's proof that you don't understand that it is all alive. That the apparent out there is a living medium of transmission. Don't anybody go overboard with this. I'm not trying to give you any subtle, strange hints of anything, but I know for a fact that occurs to you people, and I'd never mention it to anybody, really. It is just proof, again, I was pointing out, even in the ordinary world, throughout history, all these books and ideas of ESP, mind reading, precognition. It's just suddenly, through a passing anomaly, one person tuned into the fact that all this is alive. But it's amazing. I picked up the phone, and I swear to God, I wasn't even thinking about my great aunt. And the phone rang, and in fact, I hadn't even thought about it. I hadn't thought of her name. I hadn't heard anybody mention her in about 5 years. I could prove that. And the phone rang about 10:30. I remember because it was Friday. Miami Vice was on. So that was to make up for the earlier attack. And I walked over to the phone, and suddenly, something told me Aunt Helen is dead. Is that spooky or not? Why is it spooky? Let's say that Aunt Helen died an hour ago. All right, she died. Now, is her death a secret? I mean, like, did she die and outside of her? If we all separate, and there's an Aunt Helen, and then the whole rest of the world is a non-Helen set, right? There's Helen, Aunt Helen, and then everything else is non-Aunt Helen. So when Aunt Helen died, did all the non-Aunt Helens, they didn't know about it? All the trees, the plants, everybody, it's a secret. Whose business is it? It's Aunt Helen. If she wants to die, she died. All right. Well, then ordinary consciousness can say, well, that's silly because the doctors, the nurses, anybody staying there could look at her and realize she died. They can check her pulse, she's dead. And even people outside the door can say, did something happen? And they say she's dead. And so the people in the hospital knew she was dead. All right, so you're going to say it's limited to that. We've gone from just Aunt Helen knew she was dead to other people. All right, now who's it limited to? Is it limited to those people who actually saw her? And so she's dead. Well, how about the people outside the door that went, what's going on? And the nurse said, I'm sorry, but Aunt Helen died. All right, now they know. All right, is that the end of it? That seems to be the furthest away from my little made-up scene. The people out in the hall, they go, oh, Aunt Helen died. All right, so it stopped with them. The information got in them, and it can't get out. It's inside them, and it's trapped. It's in their skin because it's just there, right? What if I've been describing to you tonight is real? Forget all spooky ideas you ever heard, that apparently out there is a living medium. Do I have to carry this any further? Because it is not occult, it is not metaphysical, it's not New Age, it is not bullshit, it is science. It is four-dimensional reality that you cannot see. And so for somebody to say, all right, the God sent me a message, or it's ESP. Where's Dr. Ryan now that we need him? ESP exists. I picked up the phone and something said Aunt Helen died. Do you understand that that is possible? Possible. The phone. Why do you think that's such a great medium? Why do you think that's so fast? If it was all that great, they wouldn't charge you for it. That that's the only way that information gets around is through the phone line? How do you explain the nationalism within a day's time on the island? How do you explain love? I'm going to cut off that part there. Watch me. Go with it.
In the public.
I was talking to the tape. Speaking of tapes, I get messages. Somebody sent me another one. It came from out of town. I've had this happen before, but this happened again recently, and here's a good spot to throw it in. Is that some of the people showing these tapes, these kind of public attendees are going on in other cities, that people can show up and see some of these tapes. That somebody in one of the cities, I heard recently, had been showing up for a few times and seemed interested. This is a report I got. And the fellow finally took one of the older people around the city and said, you know, I really enjoy what he's saying, but I got to tell you the truth, I'm not fully convinced I understand it all. Wait a minute. That is precisely the attraction to a would-be revolutionist. Because I'm not sure I fully understand it all. Well, if you fully understood it all, there wouldn't be anything. Nothing. And of course, if you say, wait a minute, I listened to that, and in a sense, the sentences, I could tell the guy was semi-literate, and he could speak English, but I sat there through an hour and a half of that, and I got to tell you, it is absolutely absurd. It's like somebody playing the Wizard of Oz soundtrack backwards. I know it was English words, and sometimes the sentence would start, and I think, yeah, and it's like he was talking about politics or this and that, and suddenly it was like the whole thing blew up on everybody, and I didn't know what happened. All right, if that was true, if that's the way it struck a person, do you understand it's a waste of time? They are not connected with this. They're not part of the secret family. That sounds weird. Strike that. You're not part. I'll be more specific. That sounded too spooky and communish. You're not part of this particular mutant genetic strain in life. What this is, that's what this is. It's not some kind of spiritual family. I didn't mean that. But you are not truly part of this particular mutant genetic strain. So if it was too absurd to the person, we're not judging what I'm actually doing in some attempted way, but if they said, I listened to that, and I'm sorry I can't come back. You people seem pretty decent and nice, and I enjoyed the refreshments. But that makes no sense whatsoever to me, and I stood around and watched some of you people, and you would laugh, and you'd take notes, and I'm going to tell you, I'm just absolutely bewildered. Bewildered. I don't understand it, and no offense, but I won't be back. Glad to meet you. All right? That's one. In the binary world, that is one end. The other end, as I said, would be if the person went, wow, it's what I've looked for all my life. This is it. Everything he said just immediately went, just filed right away, click, click, click. It was the very things I'd been thinking about. I was just on the verge of it. And it was like a damn correlator machine. It just took all these little categories, these little boxes. I had minor questions, and just as soon as you said it, it went bam, 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 just filed them all away. I couldn't be more delighted. Where did I sign up? Where can I get a picture of that man autographed? Oh, I love it. That would be a waste of time. But notice, I like the ones where I remembered it. The person, you could say, unbeknownst to them, described it correctly. That I have really enjoyed this, what he's saying. I've really enjoyed it, what he's saying. But I've got to tell you, I'm not convinced that I fully understand everything he's talking about. That's it. And that's why they're attracted to it. It's not a trick. And I'm bringing this up for a reason. We're not talking about new attendees. I'm not talking about any of that kind of shit. I'm talking about what attracts you. What part, and down in this mutant minor strain in life's body at any given time, this pops up, is everybody else in life that apparently has any serious philosophical thoughts, unquote. They're either those that go, well, I can tell you what life is. Life is just some kind of, it's this one time around, it's a fast trip, on a speedboat, and you just got to have all the fun you can and forget it. And then you could say at the other binary end of that kind of spectrum would be those that go, life is a great mystery. We don't know what it is. I think about it. I read books. We don't know. All right. That, you see, is comparable to this one person saying that, they enjoy what they hear me saying, but they're not at all sure that they fully understand everything I'm talking about. That is in a place, it's not simply in the middle of a binary spectrum. It is really going off in another direction for somebody to enjoy it and simultaneously, coevally even, so I enjoy it. Not that it doesn't make any sense, nor is it I enjoy it because it makes all the sense in the world. It's I enjoy this, but I'm not sure that I understand it all. That is it. If it was totally understandable, that'd be the end of it. You would have been killed without a weapon. And if you understood none of it, you'd have been run off, like me having a junkyard dog here. Either way, it'd have been nothing. But now think about the reason I brought it up. There is a pertinence to this internally, to everybody, having to do with, I'm not going to have time to even start off on this line tonight, but having to do with your recall about if you don't like something, there is another stage to that I'll threaten next time we meet. But you remember the one was I pointed out, and some of you really got something at the time. You went off, and I don't know how far some of you have continued, but that if you do not like something that you hear, if you don't like something, you won't believe it. There is another very close to a death-defying stage if you believed in defying. Oh, all right, if you believed in death. There's another stage to that. And all I got to do is change half a word. Half a fucking word. Well, let's close out then if I got a few more minutes. What appears to be, I always like it when I say this, appears to be a little more practical. See, there I'm again playing the burlesque, the parody for you people, because many of you go, oh, good. Well, now we're getting down to brass. There's a way in which a couple of the methods I have described recently, you should be able to put together. It'd be almost like a super method, at least insofar as these two, and that is a combining of the look around method and the just a second, wait a second, the continual combining of the look around method and the wait just a second, wait a second. But there is a stage, I'll go ahead, I got that much time and bring it up tonight. There's a step beyond those two methods. It's along the same kind of side path, and it is the stop method. Serious business, and perhaps I shouldn't have brought it up so late on the tape. The stop method is, well, let's say that you find in certain areas, perhaps your love life, as I think you people call it. Just a joke. Don't write me out there. And don't send me poems by Emily Dickinson and all that crew. Let us say that as far as your love life is concerned, your existence seems to be a continuing soap opera. Okay? Here's the way this method works. Stop! Okay, you ready? Here it goes. And the people say, oh, yeah, but you don't, but see, I already covered that about 2 weeks ago about stretching Pee Wee Herman's condom of reality. The person says, wait a minute. Now, it does feel like at times that my life is a soap opera, but now, wait a minute. You can't just tell me to stop it because I've been struggling with this all my life. Yes, well, that's part of it. And then ordinary consciousness. Right quick, let's go from other people to you. All this internally, or either way that you got to have it. Well, don't just tell me to stop it because I've been working on this. I went to analysis for a while. I can't afford it now, so I go down to the self-help guy down the corner. We have meetings, we talk, and I rap with other people about this, and I read books. And so I don't like it. But you're not accomplishing anything simply if you were an ordinary person. I'm playing your part now. Is this into irony or oxymoronianism? You figure it out. The person would say, I'm speaking for ordinary consciousness, you can't just say stop it because I'm working on it. If I could simply stop it, hell, I would have stopped it. No, you wouldn't. Not stopping it is part of it. This is only good for a few people. Mutants, absolute. But it is the direct method. I don't have to say combine it. The look around method not only has 2 words, but has 3 syllables. Wait a second, 3 words, 3 syllables. And sometimes I even refer to it as wait just a second, which makes it 4 words. This method is right on it. Stop. Most of you, I don't think, will even have to write it down like look around method. Or you might get confused, is it the look around method or the around look method? So you get it down to a manageable level. Stop. I know it's silly and it makes everybody laugh, but think about it. It's not because it's a joke. I think why it's funny. Because out in life, this wouldn't be funny, all you who are laughing. You know, I'm not being theoretical or weird now. You do understand what I just been talking about? Go drag anybody you want to, any group, academics, you know, a Mensa group, a Baptist group, any group. And let me just talk what I did for the last 5 minutes. Nobody's going to laugh. They start getting edgy on the contrary, like, well, hey, you know, I'm getting out of here. There's nothing funny about it. And look, there you are laughing. But it's not because it's a joke. No. The one word. But it's only for a few people. But it's just right down to the big NG. That's what Professor J.B. used to refer to, I think, as the big nitty-gritty. No further discussion. No apparent consideration of outcomes. No question as to, well, what might be the possible ramifications to this if a would-be revolutions actually saw in a certain way that I'm just describing as directly and as pristinely as possible, that in this one area of my life, just over and over and over and over and over and over and over. It is a thing. It is a process. I'm calling it, for this one example, before the tape runs out, your love life is a continuing soap opera. And you see it. Not me coming around saying, hey, do something about that. If I got to do that, I'm not going to do anything. But for you to see it and then understand, wait a minute. I've been discussing this. Of course, once you see it, you wouldn't do this, so I'm lying already. But I'm having to speak for you. All right, I've been dealing with this all my life. I've thought about it, I've wrestled with it, I've discussed it, I've cried about it, I've screamed about it, I've hit people about it, I've hit me about it. I've done everything in the world except what? Stop! Well, that's not possible. Right, in the city it's not possible. Because you know why? Sure you do. Because you're not supposed to. Nobody's supposed to stop. Nobody's supposed to look around. Nobody's supposed to wait a minute. It's time to cross the street to the other side. You do it. It's time to go to the bathroom. It's time to turn around. It's time to make a gesture. It's time to say, no, I don't want to. It's time to say, hey, can I go? You're not supposed to look around. You're not supposed to wait a minute. And you're definitely not supposed to what? Stop. You're definitely supposed to say, boy, I wish I could stop. You're definitely supposed to say, God, I wish I could stop. You're supposed to buy a book that says, How to Learn to Stop in 12 Easy Lessons. Then you're supposed to buy next, 6 months from now, the new improved How to Stop in 12 Easy Lessons. You're supposed to discuss with others the difficulty of stopping. You're supposed to discuss with others, I once thought I stopped, but I guess I was hallucinating. What do you think? Only somebody can stop can stop. And after that, there's nothing to talk about. Even somebody said, if you stopped, you deny it. Or you wouldn't answer. Because once you've stopped, once you've stopped, once you've stopped,